okay, so you're a TV reporter who just quit. Obviously, I'm sure you're very familiar with CNN. Maybe even at one point you wanted to work for CNN, or CNN was the mecca of journalism. I don't know. But today we just found out, my source over at CNN sent me this. They got an email that Jeff Zucker resigned. So I'll read it real fast. As part of the investigation into Chris Cuomo's tenure at CNN, I was asked about a consensual relationship with my closest colleague, someone I have worked with for more than 20 years. I acknowledge the relationship evolved in recent years. I was required to disclose it when it began, but I didn't. I was wrong. As a result, I am resigning today. I came to CNN on January 28, 2013. Together, we had 9 great years. I certainly wish my tenure here had ended differently, but it was an amazing run, and I loved every minute. He goes on for a little bit more about like how much he likes CNN, but it's interesting, that this is somehow tied to the Chris Cuomo investigation. And, I was remembering how when he was fired, he had a spokesperson who told people publicly that Cuomo and Zucker were very close and that he knew everything about what he was doing with his brother. Like this is from the New York Post. Can CNN host Chris Cuomo has fired back at the network, accusing his boss of knowing everything about his involvement in trying to quash ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo's sex scandal. In a statement, a spokesman for the fallen TV star threw his longtime ally, CNN President Jeff Zucker, under the bus while insisting the journalist has the highest level of admiration and respect for him. And the quote is, they were widely known to be extremely close and in regular contact, including about the details of Mr. Cuomo's support for his brother. And there were no secrets about this, as other individuals beside Mr. Cuomo can attest. So my question for all this is the information about what Zucker says he resigned over, if that is in fact what's really going on, is that in some way related to Chris saying, hey, you know what? You did this to me, so I'm going to make sure everybody knows that you have your own dirt in the background, and I was keeping this a secret for you, but I don't owe you anything anymore. And I just kind of wonder if he, the fact that he got fired and there was bad blood there somehow led to this information surfacing. So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on all of this.
I don't know if Chris Cuomo has anything to do with this. Maybe.
Well, he
I
definitely
do agree with a lot of what you said, but my initial thought when I read about it was, okay, so there's somebody who had a consensual romantic relationship with a coworker, not a sexual assault or sexual harassment case, like a completely consensual relationship. Yeah, you're supposed to tell HR about it, but are you actually going to lose your job about it, especially if you're valuable? One thing I've learned is you can get away with more when you're valuable. Your work can say, hey, don't wear flip-flops. And if you're not their favorite coworker, they might get you in trouble. But if you are pulling your weight and you're one of the stars of the company, you can probably walk in with flip-flops and no one's going to say anything. So my thought is this is probably on a surface level true, 20% true, but there's probably more going on. The crime is always worse than the cover-up. So I would say that, yeah, maybe there was a consensual relationship going on, but there's probably something more deeper going on that might come out in a month or two. And who knows if that's going to be entirely accurate. And this is also coming from CNN itself. I think that there's something greater going on and he's leaving while he's ahead. People have had way crazier, worse scandals and they step away to spend time with family for 2 weeks and come back. The fact that he's leaving altogether, something bigger is going on. And I think you need to look at CNN as a whole. I mean, think about it. CNN is owned by Time Warner, which is owned by AT&T. And the biggest shareholders of that are Vanguard and BlackRock, which are BFFs with Pfizer. Like you have to question the financial trail of different organizations too. But I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of news stations are CNS news source affiliates, meaning if you're watching local news, there's a decent chance you get some of your national content from CNN. So yeah, I think in the long run, the fact that this statement, I think will maybe not age very well, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. I think something worse is going to come out about Zucker, maybe something a little bit more incriminating or a little bit less ethical or something about the company in general. And so he's copying to something that isn't quite as bad. Like, oh, I had a consensual relationship with a coworker. I did look it up. It says he's married. So maybe that's a little bit of a scandal.
I don't think he's married anymore. I think he's divorced. I was looking that up.
He probably definitely is.
Well, I think he got divorced a couple years ago, but it could have had something to do with the relationship. I also heard from this person I know over at CNN who was telling me about it, that Stelter went on air, and I can look for that in a second, and talked about it. And allegedly the story they're going with is that they developed this relationship during COVID. So maybe it was, I don't know. Who knows what the truth really is. I was just saying it definitely has something to do with Cuomo, in the sense that there's, at least what they're saying, that that there was part of the investigation, this information was revealed. But you're right, it does seem odd that it would just be like, why would his life, this is why I started asking, does it have something to do with Chris saying, you know, okay, well, I have no reason to hold back what I know now. And maybe he knew something even worse. Like you're saying, like maybe there's something that people knew about Zucker that's even worse than what we're reading in this press release. But that was why I had that question, was just like, I know that there's that, there's that tension there now. And if they were really as close as they've claimed, those two, then, who knows what could have been happening. But like, I think it's very fair of you to say that there could be something worse. And it's just like, let's just put this out there because this'll keep people talking about something that I could bounce back from, versus something else that maybe would end my career forever.
And there's also something noble about like, oh, I'm holding myself accountable for this mistake that I made, and I'm stepping down voluntarily. It kind of throws the scent off of you. I'm not trying to insinuate that he's done something worse, but I wouldn't be surprised if 2-3 months from now we saw another headline about him.
Before we get to the rest of this video, don't forget, if you're planning to resign sometime soon, and especially if you're resigning amid a scandal, there's no better way to forget about it all than going to AllisonWinePromo.com. You get 50% off some of my favorite high-altitude Malbecs from Argentina, one from almost 9,000 feet, another from the oldest vineyard in Argentina, over 200 years old. You get 50% off the wine itself and 50% off shipping. That's AllisonWinePromo.com, Allison with 1L, winepromo.com. But if you need something to wake you up the morning after you just quit your job or were forced out because you're just not sure what you're going to do next, you can go to twinenginecoffee.com/Allison, twinenginecoffee.com/Allison. These are also high altitude roasts from Nicaragua, certified USDA organic, small family owned company. The CEO lives right there in Nicaragua where they grow, harvest, and roast the beans. There's a wide variety of roasts, as well as a Caturra tea, which is great. You use the coffee fruit for your tea. But wherever you are, or whatever you're doing for work or not doing for work, don't forget to check out my sponsors and support free speech wherever you are.
Is this the announcement right here?
Yeah, we could watch a little bit of it. Let's do that. That way we can see what these, they think a Stelter on it. They're hard-hitting media reporter. Here we go.
Reliable sources, Brian Stelter. Brian, what more do you have?
As you said, Kate, Zucker's been a larger-than-life figure at this news organization for nearly a decade, a pioneering figure. And now his resignation is stunning this newsroom and the news industry. Now, let me read you his memo in full and then put it into context for the viewers. He wrote to staffers a few minutes ago, quote, as part of the investigation into Chris Cuomo's tenure at CNN, Cuomo, of course, fired last month, Zucker says, I was asked about a consensual relationship with my closest colleague, someone I have worked with for more than 20 years. I acknowledged the relationship evolved in recent years. I was required to disclose it when it began, but I didn't. I was wrong. As a result, I am resigning today. Zucker continues in the memo here. I came to CNN on January 28, 2013. Together, we had 9 great years. I certainly wish my tenure here had ended differently, but it was an amazing run, and I have loved every minute. I am grateful to the thousands of incredibly talented CNN and Turner Sports employees who helped make this such a joy for me and such a success for all of us. I wish each of you nothing but the best in the years ahead. That memo from Jeff Zucker a few minutes ago, a stunner for the CNN newsroom and for Turner Sports, which he also oversaw in recent years. Now, the head of Warner Media, Jason Kilar, has just announced that he will be announcing an interim leadership plan shortly. In other words, he's not naming a new boss right away. That tells you this did happen very suddenly. The key detail not included in the Zucker memo is the name of his colleague. He refers to a consensual relationship with his closest colleague. That colleague is Allison Gullist, who is the head of marketing and communications for CNN and for Turner Sports. She has worked with Zucker for decades. They were together at NBC at the Today Show in the 90s, then at NBC Universal.
Just heads up, they worked together for a long time, and he would have been married during those years. Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
We were discussing that earlier. Okay. And why did they throw out her name? Was that important? Like, why do you think they decided to say who she was?
I actually thought about that too, because in the memo, it doesn't say anything. But when I was looking this up earlier, it has her name in articles, and they named her name on air. And it's like, okay, so you're not going to release her name in the memo, but we'll say her name on air. Like, is she a scapegoat? Like, or did she volunteer to do this? Are they going to go leave and be together, and people are going to find out they're together anyway? Or is there something more going on? I don't know what the politics are like at CNN. I don't know very many people that work there. I think we should ask some little people who work there. Ask an assistant, ask somebody who's maybe a custodial staff member. There's people who know all the tea and know what's going on. But it's also like kind of cringy to watch that. They had like a Ken Burns VO slideshow ready to go. This was, I don't know. What do you make of this, Allison?
It's definitely manicured. I think now watching this, I may change my mind a little bit back to thinking that it definitely has something to do with the Cuomo investigation. However, I still stand by, I know he's saying that, but I still stand by the fact that I don't believe, I know it's conjecture, but I don't believe he would have just offered up this information and left CNN if he didn't feel like he was backed into a corner. So I do wonder if it may have, in some indirect way been related to that investigation, but the whole thing of like saying her name, why would you do that? And then it's Stelter's here saying that this happened so fast. We don't even know who the interim is going to be. Like, are they just trying to make everybody feel like this was something that nobody knew at CNN, when it seems like come on, the guy's, he has a relationship with the marketing, somebody that's high up in marketing. And as you were bringing up, money for marketing, where does that come from? Where are the connections? Who is she connected to? And how could that have implicated his journalism, if you even want to call what Zucker and CNN often do as journalism? But you know what I mean? Like, that's interesting that they decided to tell us she was in the marketing department and very high up in the marketing department. I think he said marketing director, right?
Yes. I mean, she sounds like she's the head honcho of marketing, is my understanding.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not like a diehard CNN fan. Like, they're not my team that I root for. I'm not against them. I'm just not incredibly familiar with them. I never interned with them in college or anything like that. But marketing and news, they have to have a relationship. I mean, people have to pay the bills. People have to feed their family. I mean, somebody once told me that news is just puzzle pieces to fit in between commercials. And I don't mean that as a knock to anybody, but it's true. I mean, you have to hit those times, and that's what you have to do. Without advertisers, this kind of news model would not exist, and people would not be able to take a paycheck home.
Right. Well, and at my old stations, marketing was different from sales. So she may have been, marketing was where they did the promos and stuff for CNN, but that also meant there were connections with who are we promoting ourselves to or for, or how did we want to be seen? And so there are still implications, even if she's not the head of sales, which would be the department that's taking in directly advertising revenue. There's still connections there. I think if you're trying to market CNN to, really to not just viewers, but to potential advertisers, there's still connections there that I don't know. Again, I think it's fair to question, like, why did they tell us who she is? And you're right. If she didn't offer that information on her own, then they totally threw her under the bus on this one. So I don't know. Okay, let's watch a little bit more.
Universal and now at CNN and Warner Media. According to this memo, according to the memo here, it was a consensual relationship that evolved in recent years, and he did not disclose it, and thus that's why he's resigning. I've just received, Kate, while we're speaking here, a statement from Allison Gullist as well. As I said, Gullist, the top marketing executive for CNN, she's remaining with the company, and here's what she says, quote, "Jeff and I have been close friends and professional partners for over 20 years. Recently, our relationship changed during COVID. I regret that we didn't disclose it at the right time." Gullist going on to say, "I'm incredibly proud of my time at CNN and look forward to continuing the great work we do every day." So this is a scenario where you have people who are working together for a long time. Then they start a personal relationship. And because they're both acknowledging they did not disclose it at the time, Zucker saying he should have disclosed it right away. That is why he says he's resigned effective immediately. Kate, we both know.
I don't know, man. The more I listen to this, the more I'm skeptical that that's what's going on. I got to say, you're right. It seems like not enough for a guy like Jeff Zucker to resign. It just seems like not enough.
There have been some really, truly disturbing things that have happened and have come out with some CNN employees recently. I mean, child pornography and sexual assault, like real true crimes. This is a consensual relationship. Granted, you are supposed to tell HR about it, but this isn't criminal. So I do think that this isn't going to be the last that we hear from this. This seems like a transparency issue, which is pretty common in a lot of stations.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I agree. I think there's probably something else going on there, but who knows? We'll see. We will be paying attention, and maybe Allison, you can come back on if there's a new development in the future. If you want to see the entire conversation that we had or the entirety of the commentary that you're watching, please go to one of my other platforms. One of the best places to go is AllisonMorrow.locals.com, where you can become part of my editorial board and pose questions ahead of time for interviews. I also do live editorial board meetings on Saturdays. You can bring your feedback and pose ideas for guests and topics for the week to come, and you get exclusive content. So go to AllisonMorrow.locals.com, but whatever you do, don't stay here on YouTube. If you want the full truth about what's happening around us, you gotta go somewhere else.